Shalom, beloved family. It's your girl Sophia Spiritualite, and we're here with a message. Probably the last message in this series because essentially what I did was like a basic training for working with the mother, a process that I put myself through, and yesterday was the last day, and boy, it was really tough. I would say these 6 days were probably some of the toughest 6 days that I've ever had, and especially since I didn't know that this was going to happen, and then it was kind of like, oh, I need to do this every day for 6 days. Okay, let me just go ahead and rearrange my whole life and whatever. So but I feel like I have successfully completed what I needed to complete. And so the messages hopefully will be a little bit different from here on out. But this is the last message I sort of got, and I wasn't really sure how to present it until today. And so I've had a great deal of time to think about a lot of what I've been seeing and experiencing and learning about the mother. And I think the message is that it's time for the great unlearning. We've had the great awakening. You know, many of us who were asleep, we are now awake. So we've had the great awakening, and now we need to do the great unlearning. And what does that mean? I was talking with a sister, and after that amazing live stream with Sister Ramona and her friend on Friday, and the message came about that some people are using their skills, their talents, their hobbies to get a blessing instead of being a blessing. And so, what does that mean exactly? I think that you're going to start, and I've already started to see it. I started to see it a long time ago, but now I see it quite clearly, a demarcation in those who are um, presenting information, studying, and research so that they can get a blessing, as opposed to those are who are presenting the information to be a blessing. And the demarcation that I see is in people who are trying to further our understanding of who we are on this planet at this time in this realm, as opposed to those who are wanting us to skip over this planet, this realm, and this time to to skip ahead. And I'm not saying that those messages are not important. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the demarcation time right now is that we have to focus on unlearning everything we've learned. In the last 2 to 3 weeks, I have just basically come to realize that everything that we do is right. We just don't have the right intention, and intention is everything. If you looked at any of the brothers Eon's videos that I posted about a lot of this stuff, he said that in a video, and it really hit home because you know people want to have people want to skip over this part. They just want to get to the part where they don't have to do this part. And I understand that, but that's not what it is. You know, a lot of the stuff we learn, your intention is everything. Meaning, I'm sorry, I forgot that's what I was talking about. Your intention. So when you sign documents, oh, it wasn't Eon, it was somebody else who said that, but it's in the same category. If when you sign documents, something can be your signature and something can be your autograph, and the difference is your intention. Do you intend it to be your signature or do you intend it to be your autograph? And when you look at life like that, then you start to see, okay, wait a second. Ugh. So why is it that the Gentiles and we can do the same things, but their things are different than our things? Well, their intentions are different than our intentions. So a lot of us, again, we have intentions to, exit the system and uh, go to the kingdom and all this stuff. When you don't understand, the kingdom is here. The kingdom is built. The kingdom is built. The kingdom is here. It's built and it's here. It's not somewhere else. It's here. Why do I say that? Because we built the kingdom for the Gentiles to take over. Naturally, they are building the kingdom that we're going to take over. That's how it works. There's no other way for it to work. So if you're looking for an answer that's outside of yourself, basically what we have here, what we have access to, you're looking for the wrong thing, because it's all here. And brother Dear Bay's video basically confirmed that, because people are, like I had said the other day, I believe everything in the Bible is true. However, I also agree with Rod Hayes, which says that uh, uh, that book is not our book, because I believe that it isn't our book, but I also believe it is our book. But I also believe that it's true. Why? Because it's a multi-dimensional book. So if you're just on your, if you're in 1D and you read the book and you accept everything that it says entirely at face value without doing any additional thinking, that's true for some people. That version of it is true for some people. If you look at the book and you look at it and you use it as an encyclopedia, as a reference book, as a point of orientation, that's true too, because that's the level that you're on. That's also true. If you look at it as a storybook where it has the stories of your people, with hijack language coded in such a way that when you awaken, you'll be able to understand how the stories are really being told. That's true too. That's absolutely true. If you are a person who looks at the Bible and says, these things are not relatable to me at all, none of this stuff is relevant. Actually, this book is a book of curses, and I don't need to use this book at all. That's also true. It's all true. We have to unlearn the concept of there's only one truth. That is just simply not true. That's simply not true. It's multiple truths depending on where you are on the timeline. And what really made me think about this was, there's a guy's video I posted yesterday, and he does this. These Gentiles are into this watching whatever this is, and trying to figure out when the rapture is going to happen and all of that. And one thing he always talks about is, on this timeline this happens, and on that timeline that happens. But what I realize is all the timelines are true. See, we don't understand that we are interdimensional beings having a human experience who are capable of interdimensional activities. And so you can jump from timeline to timeline based on what your level of awareness is. So if you have zero level of awareness, you're going to be on the zero level of awareness timeline. And then as soon as you learn a little something, you're going to awaken, and then you're going to jump to a different timeline. See, we're always jumping timelines. And I used to be one of those people, like I said, I'm a recovering conspiracy theorist, and I used to follow, like, all this stuff with the white hats and all this timeline stuff, right? Everybody's looking for certain times. And you would see that at certain times certain things would happen. It would be very interesting and very weird, and you say, well, why did this happen at this time, and why did this happen at this time? And eventually you have to just come to the conclusion that, what everybody is looking for is what is happening, because we consciously or unconsciously create our reality. And so people who are looking for Trump to come back, he's going to come back, because there's people out there creating that, just like we created the quote unquote Jesus Christ with our belief in their Bible. That's what we did, because we believed it, and we brought it to life. And so you have way too many people out here believing way too many different things, and that's what they want. They want us to be on different timelines. The problem is, now we're all starting to coalesce around one timeline, and that's creating a great deal of problems for them, because they thought that if they could just keep us all on different timelines, we would fail. Our mission would ultimately fail, and they continue to run everything. But now we have to coalesce around one timeline. And so what do I mean by that? I did a video and I was talking about how I celebrate certain holidays and because it's a family tradition. And so what I realized, well, I realized a lot of things. Number one, I actually grew up a vegetarian. So whereas maybe other people did not already have years of fasting for meat under their diet, I already had years of fasting for meat under my diet. So when I had meat, it was on feast days. And I commented that in one of the comments to somebody who said something about that. And I was like, well, I already was in the experience of eating meat on feast days and prepared a certain way by a certain person. My grandmother, like I said, she would on Christmas and Easter, major holidays, she would prepare roast beef, and that's basically when I would have it throughout the year. And so, and that was it because my mom didn't prepare it. And so I already have that in my mind that it's not like something that you just eat all the time. It's got to be prepared a certain way. A certain person has to prepare it, so on and so forth. I already had that in my mind. So I realized that everybody didn't come from that background. And so, due to the nature of my upbringing, I'm in a different and more unique position than other people, especially if you were raised in a church and it wasn't a super abusive church, then you have a different understanding of a lot of things. And so what it is what I'm seeing clearly is that the it's not that the feast days are the Hebrew feast days are to be ignored. It's just that they a lot of them so happen to line up with our holidays here in America. And so you have to reconcile whether you're an American or from these lands or if you're a Hebrew from these lands. And the way to reconcile it is to say, well, um, Hebrew was a title that we held at a time. This is when you get into your hierarchy. So, coming through the ranks of humanity, at one time we had held the title of Hebrew. And so, celebrating the Hebrew days is not bad. It's just that you have to understand that it was a title that you once held. And so, the holidays that are celebrated here in America, remember, Gentiles don't make anything up. They're not creative. What they do is they corrupt every holiday. So, for example, a lot of people don't celebrate New Year's Eve. I always celebrate New Year's Eve because we called it watch night. And we would go to church and we would have service. And we also had a very particular feast prepared in a particular way. Specifically, we had black eyed peas. That was the meal. Well, in at the church we had black eyed peas and I think collard greens. But my grandmother, she would always make fried chicken and spaghetti. So I have two distinct New Year's Eve feast tradition and a New Year's Day feast tradition. And so and they're both similar reasoning behind the traditions, but the whole thing about it is if you don't if you don't have that as your history, then none of that stuff is going to make sense. But the whole thing about the watch night service was, you know, it was like I have heard multiple explanations of the watch night service, but I'm going to give you the one that resonates the best with me. The watch night service for me was when you started your new year with celebrating and praising God. For others, I have heard that it was like you're waiting for family to get home from war and stuff like that. I've heard a lot of different things, but the point of the matter is, across multiple traditions, around the country, you have congregations of black folks gathering on New Year's Eve. Now, what did the Gentiles do with that? They turned it into what it would have been for us, which is a party. Because remember, if you go back to Leviticus, a lot of that stuff is very specific uh, ways of how you're supposed to celebrate parties, and it's like it's like the record book for how a party is supposed to set up essentially. And so if you look at that, then you will see that what the Gentiles are doing is more reminiscent of what we would have been doing as a part of our regular um you know uh burnt offering parties. And so How do you reconcile that? Knowing, given these two different ways of viewing things, how do you reconcile that? Well, the way that I have suggested people reconcile it, in the way that I intend on reconciling it, is I'm going to fast from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then after 9 p.m., I'm going to go out and celebrate burnt offering. And that way I am harnessing all of the energy that's out there and utilizing it in a way that returns that energy back to the way that it would have been for our people. And so, is it the same thing that the Gentiles were doing? Pretty much. However, it's I have a different intention about it. And so, when we the most, if you go back and look at my consecrate versus covenants and consecration lesson, you will see that your intention is key. Your intention is all that matters. Everything else is about something is irrelevant. What is your intention about it? So my intention, me personally, my intention is to celebrate all of the traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation amongst my people, while adding in new traditions of the Hebrew days, which I wouldn't, feast days, which I wouldn't have necessarily been celebrating that way, so that I can give the glory and the honor to the Most High in the way that feels the most comfortable and appropriate for me. So, another holiday we have to re examine is Christmas. Now, I know a lot of the Hebrews, they automatically say, oh, Christmas, the tree, and you're bowing down and all of that, and that's what I had heard. But now I'm thinking, well, if you have a star at the top of the tree, that's pretty much the two tarot cards, the tower with a star on it, which celebrates the impregnation of Mary on December 25th, which, if you look at that video by the timeline guy, he said that Mary would have self impregnated. So while we have been saying, oh, we shouldn't be celebrating Christmas, we never considered that it was the day of conception. So the day of the immaculate, the latest, the last immaculate conception. It kind of seems like something we should celebrate if we want to go back to being able to immaculately conceive. I mean, how do you I don't know how she reconcile that. I mean, everybody has to think about it, for themselves, but I'm not really sure how else you reconcile that. So, especially if you have a tree that you don't, not a dead tree, but a living tree that you use year after year, and you put a beautiful star on it and you put lights on it and you think of it as your celebration tree of the last immaculate conception. And inviting Saint Nicholas, who is the patron of the children, to come and protect my children, and also for the beloved sister Eve to come in and teach us how to do immaculate conception as she once did. As she came and taught Eve as Gabriel how to immaculately conceive, I want Eve to come and teach me how to immaculately conceive. And so, while it would look on the outside that you're just celebrating Christmas like everybody else, in your heart, in your mind, your intention is different. And so, what are you able to do? Because our people are the most powerful energy generators and manifestors on the planet. You're taking all of that energy that everyone else is putting into their Christmas, and you're essentially drawing it to you, because one righteous person in the city could have saved Sodom and Gomorrah. How is that? Because they could have transmuted all of that energy from Sodom and Gomorrah and turned it into the energy that was necessary for that place to be saved. But there wasn't one righteous person. So me, I believe I'm the one righteous person here. Of course I'm going to shoot my shot and say, well, let me just see what happens. If I can harness, first of all, I know it worked for Thanksgiving. I mean, we were able to, I had a great time with my family and we did what we always do. And I was able to get some information, the information that I shared with you guys about the Civil Rights Act of 1866. I mean, that didn't come from nowhere. I harnessed a lot of energy, pulled it into what I have been working on, and we got a huge breakthrough on that. And so the people who, the people who have not been thoughtful about this issue, they may not have seen similar results with their holidays. So me, I personally am, of the mindset that every holiday the Gentile celebrates is a holiday that I should be harnessing. So I really, I'm gonna give a couple more examples, and then I'll just leave that to think, leave this for you all to think. So as far as a great unlearning is concerned, I have always been able to learn something, go and check and see how it felt, talk to elders and experts and get some understanding and then unlearn it. I have been doing that my whole life. That's how I got through college. That's how I got through graduate school. That's how I mostly got through my doctorate program. That's how I've gotten through dealing with people at church, all different places, because somebody would tell me something, especially when I was an undergraduate. I would go and I ask my grandmother, like, do you remember, or my mom would be like, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And they were like, nah, that's not what happened. This happened. Or, yeah, I remember that. This is what happened. That's what happened. And so, as quickly as I learned it, I unlearned it because I had elder women to go to verify the facts that I was learning. Because, like I said, my major was African American Studies, and so a lot of the stuff they were talking about, especially in the civil rights movement, my mom was alive, my grandmother was alive. I can go and ask them, hey, do you remember about this? Do you remember that? And see what kind of information, how big of a deal was this? Oh, it wasn't a big deal. Nobody cared about that. Or, oh, yeah, it was a big deal, like the March on Washington. That's how I found out it was an op because my grandma was like, I'm not going to no DC to with a, they bust people in. I mean, she told me that, you know. She sat home and watched it on TV, but she was like, I'm not going downtown with that, with those people and this and that. She wasn't with it, and so I remember these things, and so it's really difficult for me to listen to people, what people say in books, when I had and still have, because my mother, I ask her a lot of stuff about what she remembers. That's how I learned about Brown versus Board of Education, that whole like integration thing, and what that was really like. And I got two totally different perspectives of how the integration went, based on my mom and based on my dad. And even though they're in the same state, they had totally different experiences. And so I had that information on me. So when somebody would say, oh, integration, it wasn't that bad, I would be like, no, well, actually, my dad had to fight every single day for his whole education life. And people say, oh, well, the integration was great for people or was horrible for people. I was like, no, actually, my mom, she had a great experience. Her integration was super easy. There was no real fights. People just got along. I have two different sides of the story for each everything. And a lot of people don't have that. They don't understand how that could possibly be true. And that's because it's different timelines. So I realized that if you were closer to the city, the timeline you were on was the integration wasn't a big deal. But if you were further away from the city, your integration timeline was much more difficult because you had more it was just more difficult because it was more diverse, and in closer to the cities it was less diverse, so it was easier. And that's the conclusion I came to. And so when I learned stuff, I could easily unlearn it because I knew that based on there was a lot of different factors that would determine whether how someone experienced something. And I realized again, like I said, everybody wasn't privy to that type of upbringing. Everybody didn't have that. And so once I really realized that, oh, everybody didn't really have this, I was able to navigate between, okay, where's this person from? What is their experience? And I could identify with them on either side. And that's how the great unlearning is done, because based on somebody, you can't tell somebody what they know is it to be true is not true. All you can do is ask questions and provide examples of alternate examples that you have, firsthand account of, or you've heard. You just provide as an alternate experience. There was one time when that didn't work. I was on a live stream with a person named Tommy Sotomayor, and he didn't want to hear that, black people, he didn't want to hear about what it was like for black people to be the majority in an area. And where I'm from, black people are the majority. And so it's very difficult for me to understand um, how people don't know what it's like when blacks are the majority. It's the same thing. People want to just say, oh, when whites are the majority, it's this. I'm like, no, where I was from, blacks are the majority, and like it's still the same thing. Like what you're saying is not a black versus white issue. It's a not understanding to be a a Gentile versus child of light issue. More so than anything else. Who are the chosen and who are the Gentiles? And when you're talking with a Gentile, of course, they're going to look at everything from Gentile eyes. They're not going to be able to see the multiple layers of things that are going on. And so I say all that. Another example, okay, this is my last example, but it's very, very important because I know that a lot of people have just decided to completely throw the whole entire church away, every bit of it. And I understand that. However, I spent 6 months going to a Orthodox church, and I am highly encouraging people to see what an Orthodox service is like. And the reason why I'm saying that is because one thing they say about the Orthodox Church is that it is the church that Yahweh Shai left. And it's a church that Paul established. And so this was before I got into this area of the truth, but I still wanted to know what that was like. Like, okay, so if this is a church that Yahweh Shai left, that Jesus left, what is this church actually like? Because I've never been to a church like that. And I think you get a different, especially if you go for their Pascha, which is Easter. I think you get a little bit of a different understanding of what life would have been like at the time of Yahushua. And like I said, I always look at that as my big brother because he indeed did show us how to conquer the tree of death and climb the tree of life. He and Mary Magdalene both. And so now I understand a little bit more about that. I believe that the Bible is two parallel stories. You have the story of Mary Magdalene, and also you have the story of Yahushua, and you have they're like on parallel storylines, and they're all told in different ways, but it seems like a lot of the stuff, some of the stuff they were attributing to Yahushua was really Mary Magdalene. And so like the Sermon on the Mount, I have a feeling that was a sermon that Mary gave and not Yahushua. And it's that's still something I'm working on, but I just throw that out there for y'all to start to think about. But the point of the matter is, or the point I'm trying to make is that I feel like when I went to the Orthodox Church, which I absolutely would visit again, if for no other reason but to harness all of that energy. Um, the thing about the Orthodox Church is that it's not really, it has a lot of the elements that I would be looking for in in a way to revere the Most High. It has a lot of elements that I would skip, but nonetheless, it has a lot of elements that I would revere. I would look for. So I'll just describe Pashka for a second. So Pashka is their Easter, and that's I did celebrate Pashka this year. It was an unbelievable experience that there's no words for it. There's no way to explain it. You can't really get it unless you go. Is that I would say it's almost incredible. So for Pashka, you have 40 days of fasting leading up to Pashka. And what they fast from is they do the Daniel fast. So, which makes sense, which would have been no feast days, no meat byproducts, stuff like that, no sweet wine, all that kind of stuff. That's what they do. They do a Daniel fast, essentially. A Gentile made harder Daniel fast, but a Daniel fast nonetheless, no meat and for 40 days. And then at the end of the 40 days, they have like a bunch of services leading up to, they have a service at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock on their Easter Sunday, which is generally a week after because um, the Orthodox Church goes by the sun and the moon cycles as opposed to calendar dates. It's just different. So basically, you have a service where it's like standing room only, and when you go into the little chapel, it's dark, and everybody has a candle. And then, they do some. It's Orthodox service is mostly singing. Literally, it's mostly singing. And then just before midnight, you come out of the church. You walk around the church with your candle. Now, you walk around the church with your candle, and then right at midnight, they start ringing the bells, and everybody starts singing and celebrating. And they go back inside, and they do a big, like a big service of I don't think anybody's ever heard of Vespers, but I'll use the term anyway. It's like a Vesper service, and which is one of their basically main service. So, basically in the Orthodox Church, they do the same service every Sunday. So the songs are the same from week to week. Um, and then like the lights are on, and then after that service, so mind you, it's like 12, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. They have a big party. When I say a big party, I mean like everybody brings something. You go around from table to table eating. They have the grill out there. They have wine. They have beer. They have everything. These people are party. Everything except for music, because these are people who don't look like us. So, but they got everything else. It's a big party. And then you go home like 3, 4 in the morning. You come back to church the next day around 12 o'clock. They have a very short service. And then it's a big cookout. I mean, everybody comes with their coolers and their stuff, and you're back on the grill again. You're having a big party again. And then, you have the next day, they have another service with a smaller potluck on what they would call Easter Monday, and then they take down all of the decorations that they put up, and it's just different. And the reason why I'm describing it in such detail is because the way that they revere Yahweh, like the whole, like with regular Christians, when they're celebrating Easter, they're literally celebrating the death, right? But with Orthodox, they're actually celebrating the life, because they're fasting and mourning all the way up until Yahweh dies. Then they do that whole, service. And but right after that, it's like a quick, oh, he's dead. All right, it's not even in the Orthodox Church, it ain't even 3 days, because you have your Good Friday service, and then you have a service on Saturday morning, and then you have another service on Saturday night. So it's like three services Yahweh Shai is dead. It's like 24 hours. And then 24 hours later, it's a whole party. And then for the next 8 weeks of services, I mean, well into almost July, you're still saying Christ is risen, indeed he has risen. Christ is risen, indeed he has risen, to everybody you see for literally like 8 more weeks. So they spend way more time celebrating the fact that Yahweh Shai lives than the fact that he died. And I think that, put in that perspective, now that I have this understanding that I'm describing to y'all, I have unlearned what the church taught me about Easter, and I relearned how it would have been celebrated at that time. Because one thing about the Orthodox, they do have it well documented. Now, do they have understanding? No. A lot of them, I ask questions, they don't get, they don't do this kind of like deep thinking about this type of stuff. Not this kind. But what they do have is the template. And so if I was going to set up a like a party or some type of celebration for the Most High or something like that, I would use that as my template, because that's the one that Yahweh Shai left with Peter and with Paul. That's what, when they went around to the Sermon on the Mount, this is what they would have been doing. They would have been, and really the Sermon on the Mount is an excellent example, because this is how the service is. You come into the service, the pastor talks for a little while, the priest or whatever talks for a little while, and after he finishes talking, then you stand up and you're singing for the whole second half of the service. And then after the service, they're ringing the bells, and you go over to the fellowship hall and you sit down with everybody and you eat. That's every service. And so you can't deny that that's what's in the Bible. That's what it says in Leviticus, how to do the burnt offering. It's a modified for today's times, but you can't deny that that's this what they're doing is the intention, which it is, because everybody volunteers to bring. It's you're volunteering, you bring your best, and you serve everybody, and that everybody eats, and there's nobody who goes hungry. And so you can't deny the intention. Now, the execution, not exactly by the book, but you can't deny the intention. And so what I'm saying is, or what the message is from the mother is that we already have everything. Like I told the sister this, like in her chart, we came here with everything, but no, no, we literally came here with everything. We also came here with the keys to the kingdom. It's just that we're looking for the kingdom outside of us, when in fact the kingdom is within, and not only is the kingdom within. So as above, so below. The kingdom is here. It's not the kingdom is up there somewhere and there's no kingdom here. No, the kingdom is here. Heaven is here. It's just that the Gentiles had this as their heaven first, and now it's time for us to have it as our heaven now. And so, um, another thing about the Christmas thing is that it only makes sense that at the longest day of the year, you would give your kids some toys so that they would be able to make it until spring. I mean, it only makes sense because it's super dark. The kids are going to be, completely miserable. And, if you don't, you would use that as a distraction and you would use that as a time to teach them about St. Nicholas. Except they turn St. Nicholas into some old fat man that comes down a chimney. But if Saint Nicholas is the saint that watches over the children while they're children, that might be a saint you want your kids to know about. You know what I mean? And so that's why the message is it's time for the great unlearning. Everything that you have learned, you need to unlearn it and relearn it in the right way. The kingdom is here. We just have to, like I said, unlearn the people who hate our guts and want us dead, unlearn those people, and we need to relearn this kingdom with people who are going to respect us and treat us like the royalty that we deserve to be treated like. And when you look at it from that perspective, then things start to make a lot more sense. Meaning, I'm not saying that that doesn't mean the brothers is coming on the ships. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is about mindset and how to perceive what is going on now. Because, like I said in the other video, if you can vibrate on the vibration of the Jubilee, you will get the Jubilee. Let me tell you something. Me personally, I'm vibrating on the wave of everything that I'm asking for. It's extremely high vibration. I have not come down to no low vibration at any moment. And that's another thing that you have to watch out. There are people out here presenting low vibrational content, and it's okay to take some of it in so that you know the difference between the high vibrational and low vibrational. But you have to be conscious, because low vibrational content will bring you down to that low vibration very, very quickly. And so when you take in people's content, Hebrew or not Hebrew, black or not black, you have to decipher whether it's low vibrational or high vibrational. And you want to just, you know, if you're going to balance it 50-50, that's fine, but you just want to be cognizant of what is the low vibrational content and what is the high vibrational content, and how you can basically move yourself between them, because that's really what this is all about. And that's going to be another video, because this one is going to be too long as it is. You want to be able to move from the high vibration to the low vibration and back. That's how you really make the most of your life on this planet. That you can, you know, that's what I think the feasts were about. Not the feasts, but the sacrifices were about. Being able to move from this high vibration of making the sacrifice to the Most High to the low vibration of consuming that sacrifice, back to the high vibration of celebration. And you're just kind of going back and forth. And then that's why it's a party. So that's a little bit of a low vibration, but then there's singing, especially like at the Orthodox Church, the music is beautiful, the acoustics are perfect. It's just like, man, this is great. So you're vibrating back on that high vibration. And so being able to navigate between the low vibration and the high vibration is a high level skill we need to learn. A lot of people don't know how to do that. I, like I said, learned how to do it a long time ago due to my other life experiences. So I learned a long time ago how to vibrate from low to high, low to high. go get down, just like Yahushua did. He was down in the den with the sinners, and then he was up there with the Pharisees, and he moved back and forth, or he was up there with his people, and he moved back and forth with ease. And so we have to learn how to do that. We literally need to learn how to be like Yahushua. And a lot of people, they don't want to do that work. It is very difficult to be able to go in, hang out with your low vibrational family members, and then be able to still leave out there and vibrate on your high vibration. That is a skill that you have to learn, and the Holy Mother is the only one who can really tell you how to do that, who can teach you how to do that, which is why I can take holidays and transmute that energy into bringing the information that I want. And now that I know that's what I'm doing, heck yeah, I'm going to celebrate all these holidays with as much joy and cheer as I can. And I'm going to take all of that energy that the Gentiles are putting into their holidays, and I'm going to transmute that energy and bring it into our nation so that we can build up what we're trying to do. And it's not to take away from them. I don't care whether it takes away from them or not. I just want our people to be vibrating high. So if I have to alone go into their holidays, transmute that energy by myself and bring it back, hey, I'm all for it. Same thing with the churches, going and take their energy, and not like your regular church, but like I said, the Orthodox church. If I have to go in there, transmute all that energy and all that, whatever they, put out for the Most High, man, for Yahweh Shai, I'm gonna take all that energy, transmute that, send it on back to, for what we're trying to do. So, I this is a very uncomfortable message because I probably will be alone on this, but I just look at as the master manifester and generator on this planet. I have that skill and that ability, and so with the mother. With the mother's permission, with the mother's help, of course, and the father's permission, that's how I'm rolling moving forward. And I truly believe that if, a few of us start to do that, not necessarily with the church thing, but just in general, transmute your intentions. Take what the Gentiles be doing, transmute that for your own, usefulness, and, you know, like I said, celebrate, act like this is our jubilee, and stop acting like we're still in the curses. Because as long as you act like you're in the curses, you're going to stay in the curses. And so, me personally, I'm not engaging in that kind of behavior. I'm going to act like I'm in the blessing, and I'm going to walk in the blessing, and the blessing is going to show up. That's like the number one rule of metaphysics is, you know you are what you think. Thoughts are things. So that's my message. I hope that it doesn't offend too many people, although at this point everyone's going to be offended. You have to unlearn and then relearn the right way. Everything that we have, every tool that we have is a tool in a toolbox we can use. You have to unlearn, the way that the world taught us. Let the Holy Mother tell you how it's supposed to be done. She will personally relearn, reteach it to you, and then once you're able to relearn and let it be retaught to you, then you're able to transmute all of that energy that was once being used against you to make that energy be used for you. And so if you're not willing to leverage the energy that's out there, I mean, because right now we don't, by yourself, you don't have enough energy. And like Levi always says, if you don't have to use your own energy, don't do it by your own energy. So doesn't it make sense to leverage the energy that's already out there instead of fighting against leveraging that energy? You just leverage the energy that's already out there. Don't fight against it, just use it, leverage that, and make it work for you. And it's set up for us to do that. And the sooner that you do it for yourself, because me, I'm already doing it. This is just how I am. I've always been like this, so I don't have no issue with that. But for everyone else, the sooner that you do it, the better. And remember, some people are using their skills, their talents, and their hobbies to get a blessing, when in fact you could use those things that you have to be a blessing. And as you become a blessing for yourself, you will become a blessing for those around you. Gentile and non-Gentile, because the whole idea is that you don't want people to suffer who didn't do anything. You want people to deal with their karma so that they don't have to get back on the wheel, unless you're just a monster of a person, then, that's a totally different thing. I don't want people who don't deserve to suffer. The ones who don't know anything about what's going on, they shouldn't have to suffer. So if you focus on being a blessing for those who don't deserve to suffer, and wherever they may be, the ones who deserve to suffer, they're going to suffer regardless. But the ones who don't deserve to suffer, if you aren't a blessing, if you don't focus on being a blessing, then they're going to suffer unnecessarily. And that could just build you up some not necessarily bad karma, but you don't want you me personally, I would rather build up more treasures in heaven by building relationships with those beings that would eventually become some being that could help me in a different life cycle, and they would recognize me because I helped them. So that's another way in my mind of building up treasures in heaven, is by just being a blessing to those people who may in near future or far future lifetimes be able to turn around and be a blessing for me. So that's, I will still call it karma, although I believe with Sister Halima that karma doesn't is not really, we're not building up karma the same way that we used to. Because that long drawn out karma cycle is over, but that still doesn't mean that there's not people that you could help that would be able to in turn bring you back good karma in another life cycle. So that's just my general assessment of things. So yes, it's time to unlearn. We want to be a blessing. We want to just be, and we want to do the best that we can to get into that Jubilee vibration. And you're not going to get into the Jubilee vibration. And this is the season of joy. I mean, if you're going to get into the Jubilee vibration, you basically better do it now, because it's going to be way too tough next year to get into the Jubilee vibration. So I think that's why that message is coming now, because this is a good opportunity to get ahead of the curve and get into the Jubilee vibration and get your Jubilee first. Whereas everybody else is going to take much longer because they have so much more to unlearn. But we have the opportunity to use the Holy Mother to unlearn a lot very quickly, get into that vibration right now, and, use that to be a blessing to our friends and family and to the nation. So, to the spirits who are here with us, you're invited to go in peace. To my beloved viewers, you're invited to be at peace. And always remember, the Most High is your peace. Shalom.